Hey everyone. So I'm here doing my what I was supposed to do last week, which was tell you guys about the direct instruction model um, for teaching. And so the direct instruction model, it has four different steps to it, and those are the introduction, the presentation, the guided practice, and the independent practice. So the introduction is from what I understand, the direct instruction model is teaching something in the traditional way, like how you'd expect it to be taught in a high school science classroom, or a high school science or a math classroom, something like that, where it's you introduce the topic that you're trying to have your students learn. You present it yourself as a teacher. You model how it's supposed to be done yourself as a teacher, and then you guide your students as they do it. That would look like a. I'll get into that, and then independent practice where they work on it by themselves. So in the introduction, teachers should describe their lesson fully and what the students will do. So it's pretty much, you want to tell your students your objectives for the lesson. So this can be done writing it on a board. It can be done. It can be done by putting on the projector, PowerPoint, all that kind of stuff. And the student's role in this is to listen to the teacher, listen and watch the teacher. That's all the student does at this point. They don't do anything else. And then the next step is the presentation, where the teacher presents and demonstrates for the class what they're supposed to be doing. So the teacher will think aloud a lot for the students, and then make it so they think with him or her about their what they're trying to learn, and then in that process, when you're thinking aloud as a teacher, you kind of just check for the students' understanding, if they understand what you're saying, or if they're, not getting it. Then you kind of adapt your lesson plan. And again, in this, the student's job is just to listen and to watch. So pretty much like a lecture, maybe with some occasional questions from the students. That's what they're supposed to be doing. The third step is the guided practice. This is the more detail-oriented part of it, where the students they start the practice of what the teacher was modeling. So let's say you're doing like a math sheet. I think is the easiest way to explain this. So you're learning how to do your times tables, right? And you have modeled to the students how to do 2 plus 2 and 2 times 2 and 2 times 3 and 2 times 4. You've modeled that for them, and so you give them a times 2 sheet, and you let them kind of go at it, but you're not just letting them do it independently yet. That's the next step. What you're doing right now is you're having your students learn how to do the topic with your help. So again, that's you go over to the student's desk and they've done 2 times 2, that equals 5. Well, you guide them and help them understand why 2 times 2 isn't 5. And then after that, they continue on their own until you go back and check again. But it's a continual check process, which the independent practice isn't. That's like your take-home homework that you give them at the end of the day, but it's done in class. So if you give them again that 2 times, or that time sheet, right, with just the 2s, that's like saying, all right, now you guys are going to do this all on your own, and then I'm going to grade it afterwards. So if you did a times test, I guess, in class, that would be kind of the example of independent practice. Granted, you should still, as a teacher, circulate the room and assist students when it's needed, but you don't go and help them when they don't ask for it, essentially. So, again, this style is I see it as is just what a teacher should do. This is generally a good format for teaching general concepts. That's why it's done as often as it is. Because again, it's the teacher introduces the topic, they instruct on the topic, and then the students listen and watch during that time. The students then go into their guided practice where the teacher helps them along the way, make sure that they're doing it right, and make sure that they're getting the right answers. And then lastly, the independent practice where they go and do it on their own, and the teacher's only really used when the students need them. But other than that, I mean, this is a pretty basic. Setup. But there are some, interesting things also as a part of this. So, especially with this model, there are some important things to think about when you're like setting up your objectives for the students to learn. When you're setting up your, the whole learning environment, specifically about making your expectations clear and so the students can understand. Because when you have a vague expectation, might give students anxiety, or they won't understand what you're trying to ask for. So being really clear in your objectives is important, and then making sure that you have good examples in place already for your for what you're trying to teach. Like when I was thinking about this, I was thinking about the math examples pretty much solely, other than maybe like a science lesson. But I was thinking about the math timesheets when I was thinking about this for like the guided lesson, or the guided practice and the independent practice. So again, in summary, all of this is pretty much the teaching model, in my opinion. This is the what you would expect a traditional teacher to do. The students listen while they teach, and then they practice. The students listen while they teach, and then they practice. And I don't think that's necessarily like I have been taught by this model, and I enjoy it. So, but yeah, so this is the first part of the video. I'm going to cut it off here. It might look weird when I stitch it all together, but hopefully it will edit nicely. Yeah. So there are benefits to doing the direct instruction model. The first is that it helps develop thinking skills. It does this because the direct teaching model, it helps students understand how things are done in a disciplined and organized manner, I guess, where you start from one point and you go through it the same way each time. So it helps you learn to attack concepts in a disciplined way. Another thing that it does is it helps develop automaticity. I think that's how that word is pronounced, automaticity. And that is pretty much the idea that I know instinctively that 2 times 2 is 4 at this point because it's been ingrained in my body. I don't have to think that 2 sets of 2 is 4. I can just know that 2 times 2 is 4, and 6 times 6 is 36. I don't have to know that. I don't have to do the math to know that those are what they are. On top of this, it fosters independent learning because of that. The guided and then the independent practices of this model, students can learn independently for the end part of it, because the last part of it isn't, because the direct teaching model isn't just you doing something and then them doing the exact same thing. It's them doing something similar but not the exact same thing. So if I was a woodworking teacher and I made like a step stool, and I showed them how to make the step stool, to cut out the pieces for the step stool, how to sand it, how to stain it, how to paint it. If I showed them how to do that, that would just be the second step. But the third and fourth steps, the guided practice, might be them trying to make that same step stool. But then the fourth practice, or the fourth step, which is independent practice, they could be making a step stool with a rounded top instead of a square top, or they can be making a step stool with 6 legs instead of 4, or it could be have an extra 2 feet attached to it. They modify it in a way, or they modify their learning in a way that's different than different. So that's a big part of it. And then on top of that, it promotes students' understandings of themselves. At least that's what our book says. Pretty much what I got from the reading was that it helps students understand where like their strengths are, and what are places that they might need to work a little bit harder in. Like, for example, I know that when I went through school, like grammar wasn't always my best strength, but I learned that in science and in storytelling, I have a strength there, so I can learn how to use those to help me and to help me learn my other subjects like grammar. But yeah, there's a lot of benefits to the direct instruction model. Alright, hi everyone. So today we're going to be learning how to do a paper airplane, how to make a paper airplane. And so Christy's going to act as my student for this lesson. Since I don't have you guys, I will use her as my student. So the first thing that we're going to need is a letter-sized piece of paper. This is 8.5 by 11. And again, so in this part of the lesson, I'm showing Christy how to make a paper airplane, and then after that, we will have a guided practice, and then she'll do an independent practice after that. But for the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to fold it hot dog style, so it's going to be the long ways. I'm going to do that real quick. Alright, so we have folded it long ways. It is folded. And now you fold it back out, but you want the line. That's the main reason that you folded it this way, because you want the line. And then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to fold your corners into the center. So we're going to fold our corners into the center, okay? Alright, so let's do that real quick. And if it's not exactly in the center, that's okay. We'll make it work, alright? Alright, so now we have both of our pieces folded nice and crisply using our nail, because that will give us the best lines possible. Alright. So we've done that. Now we are going to fold an angled edge near the center. So to do this, we're going to fold back over our other triangle. So I'll show you what it looks like in just a second. So it looks like that. So what you're going to do is you're going to fold over your other triangle. You're going to fold over your other triangle, and you're going to try and won't make it look like that, hopefully. So you're going to do that with the other side here. Ooh, it's fighting me. Okay, there we go. Okay. Alright. So at this point, this is step 4. Your paper airplane should look something like this. Okay, it should look something like this. And then you're going to fold along the center line. So that same line you made at the very starting, the same line you made at the starting, that's the line that you're going to fold it to now. We're going to fold it to the center line. Alright, so it has been folded to the center line, as you can all see. It's been folded along its center line again. And then the next thing you do is you're going to fold the wings down. So the wings are going to be folded, and this is kind of your preference at this point, but most people fold them, not most people, but a lot of people fold them at least the front of the paper airplane. You want to make it, you want a decent sized wing. You try to fold it at least 3/4 of the way down, like so. So you're going to fold it from here to here. Alright, from here to here. And one more time, from here to here. Alright? And then we're going to do that with the other side as well. Goodness. Alright. Alright. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that is it. That is how you make a paper airplane. Do you have any questions on how to make a paper airplane?
I do not.
You don't have any questions? Okay. So now we're going to start our guided practice. Alright, so here is your piece of paper. Alright. There's your piece of paper.
Thank you.
And we are going to go through again on how to make a piece of paper. So pretty much what's going to happen here, which the guided practice is the teacher will watch the student do what they're doing, and if they make a mistake here or there, they'll help correct them in their mistake, and then after they get through this process, then they'll move on to their independent practice where they only ask for help if they need it. Alright, so again, so go for it. Remember, the first thing that we do is fold it the hot dog way, right? Mm-hmm. Awesome. And then, actually, before we start fully, since I forgot to do this at the starting, the whole reason that we're doing this is we're trying to learn how to make a paper airplane, right?
Yes.
All right. So, what should we be able to do by the end of this lesson? What should you be able to say about yourself?
I can make a paper airplane.
You are so right. Awesome. Okay. So that's where we're headed. We're trying to make a classic paper airplane, and by the end of this lesson, you should be able to make one. Mm-hmm. All right. So we folded it the hot dog way, right? So what is next?
And then I take the two edges at the very top of the paper and fold them towards the center line.
Yep. There you go. Awesome. Good job. Another cool thing about making this paper airplane is that this gives us some knowledge on how to make a paper airplane this way, so we can maybe make a more advanced paper airplane later. I looked up a lot of different ways on how to make paper airplanes in the past 30 minutes. I've been looking it up, and there's a lot of different ways to make paper airplanes, but this is the classic way. So knowing how to do it the classic way and knowing how to make a flying airplane, like one that flies straight for a while, might help us make other paper airplanes in the future, which I think would be kind of neat, some paper airplanes can make really spinny. You can get a spinny paper airplane, but one that has like a controlled spin, not just like a nosedive spin. And there's a ton of other different types of paper airplanes. So we got to the fold it stage, right? Mm-hmm. All right. What do you think is next?
Let's point it from the small fold to the bigger fold, and there's one more where these have to go together towards the center line towards each other.
Yep, and that's it.
And from there you have your preferred wings.
Yep, preferred wings. I know some people sometimes put a penny inside this to give it some weight to help it fly better, to so you don't have because the way you fold the paper at the front versus the way you fold the paper in the back, it's heavier at the front, so they kind of put a penny in the middle to help it float a little better, and kind of get the nose up rather than pushing the nose down, because it's so dense at the front. Awesome. Alright. And does it fly? I think that's the main test, right? Alright, so I'm gonna throw our paper airplanes, okay? I'm gonna throw them. I'm gonna see if they... Oh yeah, that flies nicely. Okay, so now the next thing that we're doing is the independent instruction. So we're not gonna help at all. We're not gonna unless she asks for it. So unless she asks for help, we're just gonna kind of go around the classroom and see what's up. And since this is a very one-dimensional classroom, I'm just gonna sit here and wait, and wait essentially, and see if she needs help. But normally in this environment, you just kind of be circulating the classroom, waiting for, you know, a student to raise their hand, and see if they need additional help. But again, I kind of wanted to go through again while she's doing this some of the some of the reasons why you do this type of instruction, and again, it's just to it's just a good way to do it, you know, showing students how to do something and then letting them model it, you know, letting them see how to do it rather than struggle with it. Granted, the struggle kind of makes a bond that helps them remember, but letting them see how to do it and modeling it, especially for visual learners like myself, you know, learning how to do something visually, I can usually learn how to do it pretty quickly if it's done visually, but if it's not done visually, it's harder for me to learn it. So for a visual learner like me, this method is really, really, really good because you're modeling something and then you're letting me try to do it myself, and then when I do it wrong, you help me out, you know, and that works very well for me. So yeah, we're at the wing stage. It looks like she does not need help because the instructions were decent enough to work. So that's the hope with this type of method, is that your students won't need your help in the independent instruction section. But if they do, you're there for them. But the hope is that they can be, by the independent instruction section or practice section, they can learn how to do this by themselves. So they will hopefully need you. Because that's the hope of all teachers. Eventually, your students won't need you. So yeah, this has been my probably short but hopefully informative lesson on how to build a paper airplane. And you know, thank you for watching. Oh goodness gracious! Okay. Low battery. Yeah.